Hello, everyone. Just a reminder that this week's bonus episode features a special crossover with us and the Well, There's Your Problem podcast on the topic of technicals. Have you ever wanted to know what constitutes a technical? Have you ever wanted to weld a machine gun to a Zamboni and declare yourself the rightful lord of the manor? If so, get the episode on Patreon at the $5 tier. There's a link in the show notes. Thank you, and enjoy this episode.
Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is myself, Nate. Francis is on a much-deserved break. And joining me today is the official What a Hell of a Way to Die Zoomer correspondent, recently liberated from the military to a life of civilian excess and actual happiness, Kevin Frint. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm great, Nate. Thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure, as always.
Yeah, I was really excited that you finally got out because you and I were DMing when you were deployed, and you and I were DMing when you were back from in your unit. Just like you were going through the same shit I went through 10 years ago, which is sad. Of the sort of post-deployment, I'm reminded that the Army sucks even more. Like, yes, I can drink and have free time, but the Army actually sucks more stateside than it does when you're deployed. So I was wondering, like, how has that whole process been for you?
No, you're right. 100%. Like, with deployment, it still had a lot of aspects of garrison life because of the drawdown. Like, there was constant inventorying, constant, BS, trainings we were expected to do, constant, hey, this shit needed to get done, last week, and, here we are today. But yeah, then you get back to garrison, you're like, oh my God, it is so much worse here. Yeah, but other than that, the last few months, thankfully, I've timed it very well such that I just have been going to classes, going to appointments. Then COVID hit and a big slowdown occurred. And I've been on pretty much permanent profile, so I didn't get to go to the field much. It was pretty good for myself, just getting ready for the outside world and stuff.
That's great. I mean, I recall literally on the flight back from Afghanistan being nervous because hilariously, yes, I'm coming home. It's awesome. It's great. Finally back after 13 months. But folks are getting furious at us about are you wearing Gore-Tex boots? It's officially Gore-Tex boot season in Alaska. If you are not wearing Gore-Tex boots, you are out of uniform. And I was just like, what the fuck? I don't have any Gore-Tex. I just have the boots you gave me. What? And I wound up finding my Gore-Tex boots that didn't have the thermal liners. So I was wearing these floppy ass clown shoes as I got off the plane. And of course, nobody cared. We literally the brigade commander was there at 1 a.m. greeting everybody off the plane. We turned in our weapons and they bust us back to main post and then released us. And I was just I didn't have to worry about that. But of course, they made sure that everyone was worried about it before we got on a plane, our flight home after over a year in combat. So I was just thinking about all that shit. I'm just yes, that was my initial realization that Garrison Army is worse.
And yeah, same story with us. It wasn't cold when we got back, but yeah, we were stuck in Ireland for another night because of the layover. And they're like, look, you guys need to somehow acquire a second clean uniform. We got told to put a clean uniform in our rucksack or our assault pack to change into for the ceremony. So, our families and the CG didn't find us stinking. We'd just been flying for 28 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey guys, I know you just changed into your clean uniforms, but do any of you have it? Did you guys pack 2 clean uniforms like we told you? And we're like, fuck no, we didn't, man. What the hell are you on about?
Yeah, we packed what we were told to pack, and that was it, because we were told that we would be good if we had this list. Yeah, we flew Kyrgyzstan to Germany to Gander Airfield in Newfoundland, Canada, to some random military refueling station in Rockford, Illinois, and then direct from Rockford to Anchorage. And it always made me laugh that if we had just flown direct Kyrgyzstan to Alaska, it would have been an 8-hour flight. But you have to go the entire way around the world because you can't do military overflights of Russia or China. So, I mean, big ups to our anti-imperialist comrades in Russia and China, but it also made that flight longer than shit. So yeah, it's just this was a long time ago, and yes, there's parts of it when I would hear you tell the story, I was just like, oh, that really sucks. It's the exact same thing, just a decade removed, And here I am, older and more decrepit. But so you got enrolled in school, and now you're a student studying nursing, if I'm not mistaken.
For now, yeah, I'm just a wannabe. Like the nursing program for most schools is 2 years, and after you complete about 60 credit hours of your basic, like biology 1 and 2, Chem 1 and 2, stuff like that, then you're eligible to like apply to most nursing schools. So I'm currently in that undergraduate process.
Yep.
Still that first semester, more of a pre-nursing thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, best of luck. I will hopefully will keep you from being too distracted. However, we're going to talk about the great distractor of both troops, college students, and civilians around the country, that being Call of Duty.
That's right.
Now, for our listeners, Kevin has done the most thorough show notes we have ever had for an episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die, with absolutely scholarly levels of examination of the entire Call of Duty franchise, because like many of you, I saw the official trailer for the newest Call of Duty featuring Cold War Sandinistas, Ronald Reagan, like animatronic Chuck E. Cheese looking Ronald Reagan. And I was just like, what the fuck is this shit? What in the fuck is going on? Now, I've only played I remember my soldiers playing Call of Duty, and I remember Milo from Trash Future and I playing Call of Duty. I mean, I don't really play it that much, but I've watched him play the one with was it Urzikistan or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's the new one.
yeah. The most recent one. So I've seen that before, and obviously the gameplay's gotten more advanced, the graphics gotten more advanced, et cetera, et cetera. But like what I read from your notes, I did start to get the impression, I was like, well, this is like really oversimplified and kind of, I don't want to say fascist, but kind of like fascist adjacent, like very Praetorian and power worshipping. Like, this is some weird shit. And so I figured maybe I just let you take it away to talk about the beginnings of the franchise and how it has grown to the thing where we now basically get to see Ronald Reagan deepfake telling like, Kurt Russell looking himbo in a video game that he's doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. And so, yeah, like all of you guys, I watched the newest Call of Duty teaser trailer and like gameplay trailer, and my socks were just blown right off. I was just reminded about how insane that the Call of Duty franchise has been in general, like throughout its history. And granted, this is like I'm deep diving onto single player first person shooter campaigns for games that are known for their multiplayer aspect, not for their single players. I just grew up like really enjoying single player campaigns. So to me, it's like always kept a special place in my heart. So to begin, I guess we'll go to early COD, which is like the first three Call of Duties. I forget their actual names. I think like one was like Big Red One. I forget the second. I think it was just Call of Duty 2, then Call of Duty 3. So that was just like your standard World War II like heroism stuff, like nothing like serious of substance like that you could really glean from it. It was just your average like I think I think it was on your show, Nate, where you had a guest on recently where you were speaking about like a weird like World War II movie reference with Milo, I think it was.
Yeah, we were watching A Bridge Too Far, the 1977 British epic film about Market Garden, and how the British psyche is basically hinged upon false remembered nostalgia for World War II, which they didn't fight in because they would have been too young. Because at this point, to have fought in World War II, you would have to be like 98 years old. Well, not quite that old, but like 93 years old. You have to be really fucking old. It was 75 years ago. So very few people there are very few people who were not child soldiers below the age of 90 who fought in World War II.
So from there, like that's what like those games like reminded me of. Just standard, rah, we're so great at the Second World War. Nothing of substance, like really just like 2D, like BS. And so from there, we'll move into some more interesting territory. So in 2007, the first modern Call of Duty drops, and like we'll start with Call of Duty 4, and then going into the Modern Warfare series 1, 2, and 3, and then Black Ops 1 and 2. So the first game, Modern Warfare, released in 2007. It was the first one that, like I said, Call of Duty had that was in a modern setting. And like a big pivot in this was like a lot of the gameplay was centered around how everything was in a now like had to accommodate console gamers instead of PC gamers because like Xbox Live was just like getting off the ground. The PlayStation Network was like kind of spreading its wings a little bit. So for the story, we're gonna like go into it. It starts with like Russia is threatened by takeover from an ultra nationalist group looking to restore the Soviet Union glory of like days gone.
So basically, it's the plot of Air Force One.
I haven't seen that movie, Nate. I'm 24, but I am the Zoomer correspondent for a reason.
That is true. Yes, that's true. In Air Force One, basically, the president's plane is hijacked by Russian ultranationalists trying to release one of their comrades from prison who's going to restore the Soviet Union.
So good.
Hilariously,
Yes.
so if this came out in 2007, then yes, they have basically nicked the plot of a film from 1997, I believe, that uses the same. That at least at that point would have sort of made sense. I mean, okay, would it have made sense in the grand scheme of things? No, but like Russia was pretty destabilized from the economic restructuring. In 2007, it's like if ultranationalists take over Russia, I don't think the Soviet Union is going to result. But hey, what do I know? What do you know as a fucking Russian? Oh, nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Nope. So after that, in addition to that, while this is ongoing, the stand-in country for Iraq, it's never named in the game. It's just like a stand-in country. It's taken over by, like, I'm saying this like term, you're going to hear it a lot, anti-Western extremists, because they will never say like radical Islamic extremists. They'll never say
they just don't have the
Al-Qaeda.
courage. They don't have the courage to say it. Like Barack Obama, they don't have the courage to say radical Islamic terror. And that's why you have to fight in the made-up country from America's army instead of the real country.
Oh yeah, I guess America's Army probably was like a pretty big influence on this as well in terms of like seeking a more entertaining game than like a heavily modded Arma or Flashpoint like clone that sucked ass and nobody wanted to play.
Yeah. So okay, no, go ahead. So we're basically saying fake stand-in country for Iraq, radical Islamic terror, but they won't say it. So actually, it's just anti-Western sickos.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh yeah, and they have their own stand-in Saddam. And so the two are tied together, and I'm reading from my notes here because this is pretty genius of me, like Axis of Evil style, like from like what George Bush said, because like you play like one of the first missions is you play as like a special air service like SAS guy who raids a tanker, and you discover like a nuke with Arabic instructions on a Russian oil tanker. Uh-oh.
Yes.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Very convenient.
I hate it when they leave the fucking instruction manual that's written in Arabic on a Russian's aircraft or oil platform or tanker or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. So, and then I found this interesting in that, like, I've been listening to a lot of Blowback, like the podcast Blowback.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I strongly recommend everyone here listen to it. And like, it really like rended my soul, like hearing about like, what we did to like as a country and as like Americans as failing to like stand up to like literally like the watching us get the wool pulled over our eyes. But for like the reference here, I'm talking about like this is like referencing like the fake WMDs everyone was looking for.
So basically, the WMDs aren't real except when they are in a video game, and so. Yeah, I mean, I reading your notes, you point out that, I mean, if you think about the time period this was made in, right around the period of, let's say, the actual Civil War, when the what's it called, I can't remember, my details have gotten really hazy, but in February 2006, insurgents detonated a bomb and destroyed one of the most sacred shrines in Shia Islam, and that basically, I think it was in Karbala, but I can't remember. And that ticked off a complete meltdown level of internecine violence in Iraq. And that's what precipitated the surge. But primarily 06 to 07, it was just full on bloodbath. And so the idea of a video game in which the WMDs are actually real, I'm sure was very soothing to the American gamer psyche.
Well, you give a lot of credit to the average American gamer in 2007.
Oh yeah, fair. You're
whose
right.
brain
Yeah.
is like 85% hard and Fago.
Yeah, you're right. I'm envisioning John Podoret's fucking playing this game when in real life it's just like, yeah, it's just like the dudes I went to high school with, you know. So
Yeah.
Point taken. Once again, I've overthought things. There was also a point I wanted to make. I was just laughing about this, that the extent to which this becomes, well, if you will, like a kind of people's remembered history of things. That's a whole topic
Yes.
for later, as the plots get more like Byzantine and also purport themselves to be like the true story of a political event or a
Yes.
historical event.
That's literally what it winds up being. So, all right, backtracking a little bit. So yeah, when they find this WMD with instructions in Arabic, the U.S. invades Iraq, or the Iraq standing country. And then the Marines are doing great. Our beautiful boys, they do a hellborn assault they kick everyone's butt. And then all of a sudden, a nuke is detonated in the city, which makes the sicko WMD dream come true twice. So then our special operators survived the event because they were nowhere near to be found, because they were the only smart ones saying like, hey, don't push the assault yet until we figure out where this ultra-nationalist leader is, blah, blah, blah. Some more nuke drama. This time the bad guys launched an ICBM at the United States. Our beautiful special operators stopped them. Yay. And so, yeah, I think we touched upon the points of criticism that, yeah, it makes the WFD myth real. I guess or whatever academic term there is for manufactured reality, or whoever said something about that. And like you said, yeah, there was the Civil War that was ongoing, and then also the Surge had just happened too. So this was the best. This Call of Duty inadvertently sell the Surge to a particularly stupid group of Americans.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about it's interesting. I don't want to get too tinfoil hat about it, but I mean, that's a demographic of people that wouldn't be listening to right-wing radio, wouldn't be watching right-wing TV primarily. So, the idea that here's yet another vehicle for a fundamentally, if not movement conservative Republican Party right-wing narrative, then certainly a very, how to describe this? A self-forgiving conservative narrative that basically justifies, that creates in someone's mind the idea that this is a plausible risk. That something like the Iraq War is, well, if you don't do it, then Osama bin Laden might shoot an ICBM at you somehow, and fucking Navy SEALs might have to shoot it down from space.
Yeah, it was absolutely nutso shit. So after Call of Duty 4, there was Call of Duty 5, World at War, which 2008 went back to World War II. Nothing to see here. Doesn't really apply to what we're talking about largely. But I did make a point to note that it continued kind of the trend of grittiness in media and culture from the darkness, the real weird dark shit of the 90s getting brought back up and having no contrasting enjoyable light, because I feel the Iraq War was a storm cloud over our culture.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to me too, because on one hand, I actually kind of appreciate what you would describe as the kind of gritty envisioning of World War II, because I feel the way in which we have received cultural memory of World War II is so incredibly sanitized. And in a way, I mean, reading, I talked about this recently. One of my favorite authors on World War II is the guy Paul Fussell. He wrote a book called The Great War in Modern Memory, and another book called, I want to say, Remembrance. Basically, he wrote a book about World War I and a book about World War II, and mostly they were sort of cultural analyses. But he was a platoon leader in World War II, and right the end of March 1945, his platoon sergeant, almost all his squad leaders, and most of his soldiers got completely just fucking wiped in contact with the Germans in the Hürtgen Forest, and he was severely wounded. I mean, he basically, by the time he got out of the hospital, the war was over. And he said that he had a hard time convincing people that when they thought, wait a minute, you guys, most of your platoon died like right before April 1945, and I didn't realize we were fighting. He's like, yeah, we were absolutely fighting still, and people were dying up until the very last day. But the narrative that it was all mopped up by then has sort of taken hold. And that was, a contemporary. When you think about how 75 years on, you look at it, there's a tendency to sanitize it. And it's like, I appreciate stuff that's going to look at it from a much more human lens, because, I mean, no matter what the grand scheme of things, or maybe it seemed less grim in 1945 than in 1943 or 1939. But if you were getting smoked in the Hurtgen Forest, in 1945, it didn't matter. And that to me is like, coming to terms with it means coming to terms with the shittiness and awfulness of it in every capacity. So I'm not like turned off by that stuff, but I think there's an extent to which when the vehicle of it is a video game that as we will explore later, has some interesting tendencies when it comes to its politics, I'm a little bit concerned about that, because to me, it's what it strikes me as is basically an opportunity to kind of flatten the context, and then also to really just highlight the violence being cool. And like, we blow some shit up and we set shit on fire. And, like maybe it's a P-51 that's blasting, doing strafing runs instead of, I don't know, like an A-10. But it's the coolness of the explosions and violence that is remembered, and not like the context as to why people are here. No, really, okay, yeah, that's me being a fucking nerd. I get it. That's what I do all day. That's how I pay my rent. So, like, Roger, but I'm interested in your take, because you've been tracing this through line of the whole series.
For me, I do appreciate like that story about the man in like the PL in the Hurtgen Forest. But for me, I didn't like take it that far, because like I was like focused a little bit more on like the later games, like the Black Ops series of games, with respect to, because we're going back to the Black Ops series of games. Little spoiler here for you guys. But for me, it kind of just like I noticed like my first gritty movie I ever watched was The Dark Knight Rises. Like that was like
Yes.
that was like the edgy movie that like imprinted on me forever and turned me into the freaking Joker. So like seeing it come out at around the same time as like the cultural like trash can or like ash bin that is like that I saw in like Call of Duty 5, where it was like, whoa, the Japanese like guy like cut a dude's head off and then freaking like ashed a cigarette in another dude's eye, and then you got to like blow him up with a grenade, and you would see his like poorly rendered limb fly off later. Like as a child, I was like, dang, like even as a kid, I was like, man, well, like what happened? Stuff used to be like happy.
Which is weird, because I was your age when The Dark Knight came out, and when I was that age, when I was say 12, 13, the game that completely blew my mind was GoldenEye 007, which in the grand scheme of things is just a far more tame entirety than any of these games. So imagine if you were your current age and a movie as completely badass as The Dark Knight came out. Would you be the Joker still? I don't know.
Yeah, because the Joker 2019 came out.
Well, yeah, exactly. You have that, but I mean, that in the grand scheme of things is still building on the mythos of the Heath Ledger Joker, which none of us was prepared for.
Oh my God, yeah! Rest in peace to a true legend. Okay, moving on here to Modern Warfare 2. This came out in 2009, and it's back to the modern timeline. I'm going to try and like get through this pretty quick for the story. So picks up where Modern Warfare 1 left off, nuke, blah, blah, blah. Continued ultranationalist terror across Russia and the Middle East. So first mission starts as you as a Army Ranger private in Afghanistan, where you are you go through like a shooting range while a general watches. You go out onto a convoy because like a town gets hit. You mess a bunch of stuff up, and then after you're done with the mission, you come into debrief with the general, who hand selects you for a very special mission that was very controversial at the time and still kind of is. So this Army Ranger private, a private, mind you, someone who has like less than 2 years military experience, or 3, he might have been a private first class, I don't know. He goes deep undercover to join Makarov's like secret like little terrorist hit cell gang in Russia. And this is where the infamous like airport shooting mission comes in, where you mow down civilians, like willy nilly, and then at the very end you get double crossed. Nate, do you have a Did you remember this getting any coverage in the media at all? Any static?
I remember people talking about it. There's a part of me that's laughing. So it's just like, take it the full 9 yards and be like, Army Private, you've been selected for this mission. Do the Beslan massacre. And it's like, well, we can't really get away with that. So why don't we just tone it down a couple of notches and just be an airport shooting instead? But I do recall a little bit, a bit. But I mean, I was when this came out, I was deployed. So, grand scheme of things, there was a lot of shit that I remember hearing about it, but I don't remember any of the big controversy just because that shit was, I barely even remember the controversy about the fucking Tea Party. I was completely I was in another country doing stuff.
Honestly, yeah, Tea Party, you weren't missing much. But with this, yeah, it raised a lot of static, which was kind of funny because this was kind of like a resurgence of are video games making our children violent? Meanwhile, literal children on both sides of the conflict are going to fight in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So
yeah. I mean, I just when people talk about this stuff, I'm always blown away by. I mean, there are a lot of. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of deeply sociopathic leadership in the military, but also I don't know, I went to airborne school and I was the next guy in formation with the keeper of the wings in my class, who was the youngest kid in the class. And he was like a 17-year-old who, had enlisted with parental consent. And I mean, I just, in my mind's eye, he looked like a child because he was a child, but he absolutely had the bearing, the physical demeanor, his voice had changed, but that was about the only thing about him that revealed to you that he wasn't 14. And so when people are like child soldiers in the third world, it's like, y'all, have you ever met 17-year-old privates? Because we let 17-year-olds enlist, and I do not think it's good for their brains.
No. So moving on here, the private gets framed for the attack. Russia freaks out, finding that one American expended 40,000 rounds of just mowing down civilians and cops in Russia. So Russia invades the U.S. Red Dawn style because there was some contrived point about how they knocked out some of our early warning satellites, or NORAD just refused to listen. They're like, that there's no way. And then all of a sudden, boom, Russia is invading the East Coast. So our beautiful special operators are back on the case, gumshoeing it up. This time they're hunting for the arms dealer who gave the bullets and guns for the shooting in Brazil. You find him and you torture him, actually. This is one of many torture sequences in this game that you are either second party or first party to throughout the series.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
It's great. It only gets much worse. So then the secret squirrels eventually track down where Makarov could be hiding to one of two places, and the first team goes in to this Georgian safe house, discovers a bunch of data on what happened, and they were about to get extracted, go to the public with it as they're being overrun, and then all of a sudden the general that picked you for this mission, that picked the dead private, may he rest in peace, comes out of the chopper, it was a Chinook, I believe, or similar. He was like, yeah, you hand over the hard drive with all the incriminating evidence, and he just smokes you and your buddy. And he starts monologuing as his goons mop up the Russians, and he's like, yeah, 30,000 men died on my watch, and the whole world just fucking watched. And so this is the first example of extreme sicko mode, mask off shit that came out of this series, the writer's room. I hate to be trite, but I really do want some of the shit they were on, either actual substances or just mental state that it takes to write this kind of shit.
And you made the point that this is the first realization, maybe we do bad stuff. There's a part of me that's on one hand, it's a game being played by American children and teens primarily, and to some extent, people in their 20s and 30s. And so there's a part of me that's well, maybe it's good that they're there's a country called Georgia. It's in the Caucasus. Its capital is Tbilisi. But at the same time, if it's we're going to Georgia to do war crimes, not necessarily a good thing. So I'm mixed on it, I suppose. But
Yeah, this is
I,
about as deep as we could have gotten back then. Like that, like, oh, like this American general double crossed us. Oh, like the good guys. Sometimes we do torture too, because like this was also. I'm totally like having a brain blast right now. Like, yeah, when like the torture memos were starting to come out.
yeah, and it's weird to me too. I think something they would point out too is that, and I think we'll see this in your analysis of the further installments. But in the when Obama became president, I mean, there was this huge like sort of push towards, hey, let's get the troops out, except special ops, because they can do anything, and we're going to send them everywhere. And
Yes.
that got worse. That got more prolific under Obama, and yeah, and I feel like in a way the cultural sort of echoes of that can be seen as this sort of traces through the following decade.
Yeah, it really did. And like it gets like worse as the next releases come up, with starting with Black Ops 1. So this is a 2010 release, and the story setting goes to the Vietnam and Cold War, where like I'm not saying the CIA were like the good guys before this, but I think like they were just kind of getting like their feet wet still. They didn't quite get like what they were supposed to be doing on the like the world stage. But when it came to like the Cold War in Vietnam, oh my God, did these guys come out to play? So the game starts off first mission like you're tied up to a chair, like talking, like getting interrogated and like electroshocked and stuff and tortured about like numbers and shit. Like so it's like kind of like referencing number stations. Okay, cool. Then the first memory this character has is like the CIA literally doing Bay of Pigs, and you shoot Fidel's clone.
Damn it.
Or his like body double. But the invasion goes tits up, and the main character is captured and like spirited away to a Soviet gulag where he is subliminally programmed using hallucinogenic drugs and like mind altering techniques by their version of Operation Paperclip. Like they had a Nazi scientist do this to the main character, who, yeah, just is irreparably fucked up in the head for the rest of the game. It's very funny to think about.
Am I crazy in saying that? I mean, okay, historical accuracy not important, but I don't really. Did the Soviets bring on Nazis and make them do stuff for that? Like, I mean, I get with like rocket scientists and stuff, but I'm a little I don't know. I'm a little wary of the idea that like I don't know. I don't want to get into.
You would think that like we would like bring that up anytime someone would be like, oh, but like if like a leftist would say like, yeah, we did Operation Paperclip, you would think there would be a million and one like fucking Republican think tanks at the Center for Conservative Values or some fake fucking think tank be like, actually, the Soviets also stole Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, like now, if the person was on loan from the West German government, I would believe it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I know in terms of like the science and stuff with rocket propulsion they did, but there's a part of me that's just sort of like anybody who was in the military or was like in any kind of political capacity, if they got taken to the Soviet Union, it was basically to get shot in the back of the head.
Or like imprisoned for the rest of their life. So the main character breaks out from the gulag using the help of his best pal in the whole wide world. Shit, I'm blanking on his name right now. Reznov. Yeah, Reznov was his name. So you come back and like to America, or like you kind of get drawn back from the flashback, and it's revealed that the Soviets have been working on a WMD back then called Nova 6, and your secret Squirrel Squad must once again go once more into that breach. Going back to like, I guess like the WMD thing is kind of like winding down, so I guess it was appropriate to have like a fake one through this historic sequence. You torture a guy in Kowloon, which I find an interesting choice of scenery. Then your squad, which is like CIA and then like considered also partially MACV-SOG, is at Quezon for some reason, just fighting off like endless waves of like the North Vietnamese army and like irregulars. Your guys get captured by the like North NVA, and along with like a Soviet guy that's there torturing them. And then you escape the camp, hijack a helicopter, a Soviet Hind, and just torch the
Yes.
entire Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Winning the Vietnam War, finally.
So this is like, oh yeah, I forgot to say, like, this takes place through like the setting of like the main character who's being like tortured in the chair, as well as like a separate operative and a third guy called, it's like Woods, Hudson, and Mason, which is like the three dumbest, like dumb guy, like 2010 names you could have come up with. And so I can't tell them apart very well. Either way, so the main characters and side characters like meet back up. And the guy that was tortured has like a subliminal programming in him to like kill these like three guys responsible for like the Nova gas. Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner. And like he just repeats that over and over and over through the series. Blah blah blah. U.S. gets ready to nuke Russia as like, you know, the last big bad guy of the three. I think it was Steiner or Kravchenko gets ready to activate like sleeper cells in the U.S. to release Nova gas on unsuspecting civilian populations. And then you save the day, as always. But in the epilogue, you realize your original torture programming caused you to hallucinate your Soviet defector pal Reznov the whole game. Like, he was kind of just like would show up out of like thin air, pretty much, and you'd just be like, "Hey, I'm here now." Oh, it's like, Reznov, what are you doing here in Vietnam? Oh, I defected from the Soviet Union. Oh, Reznov, what are you doing in a Khe Sanh? Oh, I'm here.
Wait. Did they seriously do A Beautiful Mind
Yes.
for the whole thing? That's incredible.
And
Oh my
gets worse,
god.
Nate. That's not even the worst part, because like through your like the guy who like programmed you, Steiner, kind of like fucks with you like as you're killing him, and he's like, yeah, it's like this shit. Oh yeah, you have a scene where you shake JFK's hand like earlier in the game,
Mhm.
and you have the main character has a hallucination where he picks up a 1911 and aims it at him. And yeah,
Hey.
he's like the shit you guys like made me like go through, the shit you guys made me think I did. And Steiner's like, oh, think you did? And then as the credits roll, there's a scene where the character is seen in like the crowd of people as JFK steps off his plane in Dallas.
Oh my god.
Like,
that's the bonus content they couldn't put in the game.
oh my god, yeah, the JFK sniper mission. I would pay $60 for that alone. Parody, not actionable, etc.
Hell yeah, get me that 2012 era DLC right away.
But like Felix said, like this is like really like bringing it back to like some Operation Gladio type shit. Like Felix from Chapo Trap House, of course. Whew. So the biggest critique I had of this was that like, yeah, it's like we're continuing to do just like weird like gray legal shit as like our heroes, but it's like we're kind of like blurring history a little bit, that like we're papering over some war crimes that's justified on our end, kind of showing that like, oh, the Soviets are pretty bad too, and like whatever. But this was like more like setting the groundwork for Black Ops 2. So where there's flashbacks back to like the Cold War, but also to the modern day. It's set in like 2025 and 1980. So one of the first missions has like the CIA was aiding like United Rebels against the Angolan army.
Oh, sweet. So on one hand, they're like, there is a country called Angola. It's in Southwest Africa. Its capital is Luanda. And you're like, good. It's like, and now you're going to fucking fight for the right-wing death squad that wanted to kill the communist government. And you're like, oh, maybe not so good.
So yeah, you save like one of the characters that was like imprisoned by sold to like these United Rebels by a Nicaraguan arms dealer who's like the main bad guy.
Yes.
He imprisoned Woods, like one of the characters from the last game, with the Angolans, who like, and the arms dealer has beef with the CIA and like Woods and all these other cats because like they accidentally fragged his sister, like with a little frag grenade.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm jumping ahead here a little bit. So, blah blah blah. You go on a mission in Afghanistan where you work with the Mujahideen.
Hey man.
Yeah, just turn up, just straight
go help the brave Mujahideen fighters of Afghanistan. All right, that's what all of us have wanted to do our entire lives.
Yeah, there was even a little bit about how there's like a Chinese agent there, like working with the CIA. Naturally, they turn and leave you guys, the characters for dead. Then you go to Panama, where the dictator of Panama, Noriega, sanctions a hit on the drug dealer Menendez's family because of their ties to drug trade. So they're kind of saying the quiet part loud here. Like,
Well, good thing we have the good guy Manuel Noriega on our side. I'm sure that's not going to go bad. But if Menendez is Nicaraguan, is it implied that Noriega is going to kill his family in Nicaragua, or are they also Panamanian somehow?
it's such a clusterfuck mess that like to be like I did a lot of research of this on like YouTube and Wikipedia. Like I played these games like way back when they came out.
Sure.
I'd be goddamned if I was going to do like 40 hours of playing these awful like brain melting campaigns.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So back to the modern day. Menendez is still alive in 2025 or whatever, and he's now a leader of a, once again, tell me when you've heard this before, a populist anti-Western movement.
So basically, he's become Daniel Ortega, and he's in charge of Nicaragua.
Yes, but it's like kind of like a worldwide like national like anti-Western movement. So it's like big.
Oh my god! You know what's crazy is that like if you ever back before Mike Flynn went completely off the deep end officially, like in the sense of him getting charged, criminally, back when he was still a complete nutcase, but he had the veneer of being a respectable army officer. He would give these seminars about, transnational threats, and they were this deranged. He was convinced that that I'm not joking. Basically, he was convinced that the Muslim Brotherhood was in charge of this entire transnational organization that also included Hugo Chavez, and that Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah reported to the Muslim Brotherhood, but also Chavez, Morales, the Sandinistas, they all fell into this hierarchy. And I'm just like,
where's Kim Jong-un in this?
I'm pretty sure that he also had a little slide about him too. But you're like, so what you're saying is that a Shia Lebanese organization and a transnational Sunni extremist organization report to an Egyptian political movement that also includes every left-wing government in South America somehow? And Mike Flynn was like, yeah, you don't even know the shit that I saw. And it's just like, oh, okay, man. All right,
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. I mean,
goddamn, like this is where like the writers just really go like fucking stupid with it. So Menendez is captured and held aboard the USS Barack Obama. While he's imprisoned, he's managed to like hack the US's entire drone fleet using a supercomputer in order to get ready for a strike on the G20 summit that's happening in Los Angeles, hoping to ignite a Cold War between China and America. So yeah, a big point of this game was like, oh, robots. There's like autonomous planes and like ground like battle vehicle like tank like walking mechs and stuff. That like was like, whoa, the future is automated, but that's bad.
I mean, nuclear armed walking battle tanks. Where have I heard that? Oh yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
Shadow Moses Island.
So he hacks it, but our beautiful brave special operators actually called JSOC in this game stop it, and we win again, or do we? Because in this one the canonical end like has like mass global insurrection after Menendez puts out a video after he dies for like inciting his movement to rise up and martyr him, which shows like the White House being fucking burned down. So that was like kind of like, whoa, holy shit, we don't win in this one. And then the alternative end has fucking Jimmy Kimmel making fun of him. So, this writer's room was like one of the best, I would say, of the series.
Yeah, this is intense stuff, man. I mean, you get all of the boogeymen of the 80s Cold War revanchism. You got Jimmy Kimmel, the USS Barack Obama. This is incredible. I'm really liking this.
Yeah, like for me, like this really showed a few things that was like cool. That was like it like continued to blur the line of like reality with like real names and faces of politicians and media figures being inserted into this narrative, like that you would fight alongside them or like they would be like referenced. And then like you said, yeah, it's like all of like just shows like how stupid the CIA was, just getting played like a fiddle like every time they had some group or person their despot, had like some goal that they wanted that they could vaguely tie to being anti-communist or something, the CIA would just throw like barrels of cash at them and just like dance along to their tune.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, so I reckon that doesn't change throughout the entirety of A, history, and B, the way this series creates history.
The last one we're going to stop on before the current game is Cod Ghosts, which came out in 2013. This one nobody really liked because of the story and the multiplayer, but I thought it was very important to mention. So the setting is in America in 2017, where the Middle East has been destroyed by nuclear weapons. So,
all right, hell yeah.
Just like big old fucking whoa to start with. Like, damn, like we are just going for it. The main enemy of like the U.S. in this instance is a coalition of oil-producing nations in South America, united as the Federation.
Oh, so damn, fucking Hugo Chavez did it again. Just united South America in the Bolivarian Revolution, but for bad stuff.
That bastard. So, and then the Federation hijacks an orbital bombardment platform, like that drops like fucking shit from space, like probably nuclear arms or like those like rods that Chelsea Manning tweeted about that became a meme. That just like cause like mass damage on the ground. So then, and they attack the Southwest United States with them. 10 years later in 2027, the U.S. and Federation are still at war, and the main character and his brother are recruited by their dad into a secret special operations organization called the Ghosts. Like in the beginning of the game, you and your brother are like, "Oh, Dad, you're so cool!" Like, "Oh, like there was this like group of like tell us more bedtime stories about the Ghosts," and he would. And then all of a sudden, you guys are inducted into it because, there's no one left to fight you. The rest of the story kind of sucks. We're going to skip it. But it ends in the main character being captured and tortured like the main bad guy was. Like the main bad guy was like, used to be the main character's dad's partner that got left behind and like tortured and convinced to work for the Federation.
All right. So
the story's
intergenerational
really
war, hell yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I thought it went like a really interesting direction of like this continuing worst case scenario of like ecological disaster, economies collapsing and fighting over like what limited resources we have left to extract. It sets the stage for like the entire game. And I thought that was like a very cool like tack that the writers' room took with this, but obviously it wasn't very popular, unfortunately, because Modern Warfare 3 came out around the same time. I didn't mention it because it's not important. It doesn't really have much story element to it. You finally tie up the loose ends, blah, blah, blah.
So that brings us then to the current iteration, if you will.
Almost. So then we're going to, and before this, between 2013 and 2018, was a bunch of series of, like, I call it postmodern COD, where COD, like, goes to the future. COD goes to space. It's Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare, Black Ops 3 and 4, and World War II, I guess, gets put in here. I didn't really play it too much. But yeah, back to the modern day. Here we go. This is the good stuff. This is called Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And it's like a reimagining and like prequel to Call of Duty 4. So it goes back in and changes some of the details of the previous games, but it's heavily influenced by previous successes like of the storytelling, as well as modern historical events and games such as the Medal of Honor reboot and Battlefield 3 campaign. So, like, hold on to your hats, kids. This is where it gets like pretty epic. So the game starts with you as a CIA agent inserting into Russia to drop a series of white phosphorus munitions on Russian mercenaries guarding a chemical weapons factory.
Okay.
So you guys like then realize, oh fuck, we like as the CIA have bombed Russian forces by accident as well. You attempt to exfil with like the chemical weapons in tow, but you're ambushed by, stop me when you've heard this before, a nameless anti-Western Middle Eastern country radical militia stand-in.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah, so they steal like the chemical weapons again, back to the WMDs. Then there's a sequence where you go to London and you play as an SAS operative. This is going to sound great to you, Nate. There's a lot of like just serious like psychopathic you keep shit in this
Oh,
that
great.
you're going to just be like head over heels for. So you are in a car and you're tailing a van that's like full of like, clearly swarthy men with AK-47s saying like, brother, we have it. Are you ready, brother? Just like the worst, like most stereotypical like radio chatter you could think of. And then, yeah, you're told like over the radio that you can't like seize the target until like you get told that like, hey, if they're like only when they identify as an enemy. So at one point you hop out of your car when they pop their like back of the van and they start aiming their weapon at you. But if you shoot them, you get a game over because it's like they really want you to despise the high command that ties the hands of our beautiful soldiers that like won't let them like take the gloves off.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're right. This is basically UKIP writer's room. So basically, the damn libs won't let you murder people in the street, even when they're pointing their weapons at you.
Until they shoot first.
Which is hilarious because, there in one of the most recent attacks that happened in London, a guy was brandishing a knife and people were trying to disarm him without weapons. They were just trying to wrestle him to the ground, and armed police showed up and just shot him from 10, 15 meters away. And you're like, so it's weird to me that armed police, not the SAS, who are a military unit, but rather the armed police for the Met, can shoot a guy who's got a knife, but if these guys have guns, you can't shoot them because the dang libs. Of course, I'm wondering who the dang libs are, considering that the conservatives have run this country since 2010. But
yeah,
you know what? If my Twitter feed has proven anything, stuff about Britain doesn't have to make sense for right wingers in Britain to believe it.
Yeah. So from there, the bombing goes off. Like a bunch of people die at Piccadilly Circus. And then from there, fast forward to the CIA fighter or the CIA guy going and meeting with a Kurdish resistance analog. There's people called Farah, Commander Farah, and like her brother Kareem in Urzikstan, the country you mentioned earlier, where you go in, you seize like a Russian airfield, do a bunch of cool stuff. Like help them in their resistance activities as like a sneaky beaky member of the CIA. Couple like stupid points here. Then there's a mission. So the U.S. Marines go in and capture actually this like the leader of the anti-Western terror group, and you hold him at an embassy. And this is literally like cribbed from Benghazi so hard. I couldn't I'm sorry, it just came out. Like this is such an awesomely hilarious like look into the mind of right wingers, and like Charlie Daniels nonstop tweeting about Benghazi's not going away, that it didn't go away so hard that it came back in Call of Duty. So rioters storm an embassy, continues radical leader to rescue him. The embassy's overrun. You fall back to the ambassador's residence, which also gets overrun. And like it has like very clear imagery and like stuff that was cribbed from like 13 Hours or whatever the movie was called. Where there's like a big field. You can't see anything due to like low visibility. You burn out all of your illumination rounds on the mortar. You start getting like random cars like leering at you and driving by, like morally like dubious, like shooting through the engine block type stuff. And then you start getting like indirect fire attacks upon you and suicide bombers. It's so nuts. Like the writers saw that film and were like, this needs to go into Call of Duty any way we can. Like the game could have happened without this entirely, but we had to do it.
Man. Okay, yeah. So basically, it's one ISIS headline after another.
Yeah.
Plus some kind of dodgy history, if you will.
Yeah. Some of the greatest hits, like kind of like paper mache onto this like really grotesque sculpture we're forming. Then there was a sequence where you're like supposed to be like fighting like terrorists and Russians as the CIA guy with the Kurdish like analog resistance. But there, the highway of death gets blamed on the Russians instead of Americans.
Cool. All right.
So, to the listeners, the highway of death was when, we just, as the United States military, just absolutely torched retreating like military and civilian vehicles that were of no threat. with like I believe it was just like aircraft bombing and killed like thousands, just leaving burnt out husks of like vehicles on these highways for God knows how long.
Specifying that, this was when the Iraqis were retreating from Kuwait at the end of the Gulf War.
Yes.
All right, cool. So I guess the Russians did that. You said there's some Shamima Begum style stuff going on.
Oh my God, yeah. We're getting there further. I forgot to mention, that like after like the terrorist attack, to take the gloves off, you guys raid a safe house with a couple scenes of like where it's like, oh, it's under night vision, it's like really cool. This is like slowed down Call of Duty. And there was like a scenes of like you would like breach a room and like shoot like the guy with the gun, and then his like grieving like your wife would pick up the weapon and like turn it on you, and then you'd have to shoot her. So it's like, whoa, like women can be terrorists too. So like this just kind of goes back to this like recurring like thread of there must have been a British writer in here that's like obsessed with like just the brainworms of like the dregs of society.
The birds is terrorists too, simple as.
So from there's also multiple sequences of Russians torturing prisoners, killing non-combatants using chemical weapons, which I'm not going to say they didn't do in 1980 when they invaded Afghanistan, which is like Urzikistan's like equivalent, but they blamed it on the like Russians, which once again like really sloppy sleight of hand, like 3-card Monte trick to show that like these guys are the bad guys, not us. From there, another really just brain damaged British take. You and the boss man, like Captain Price, go into St. Petersburg, but you can't go armed. You can only take a pistol with you, and you conceal it in your coat. But it's because it's like a scary Urzikistani extremist no-go zone.
Oh, you're joking!
In St. Petersburg, that's the thing.
There's Muslim no-go zones in this game. Oh my fucking God!
Or you have to go find the guy that like organized the embassy storming and like torture him or whatever. So, but before this, you have to go onto his turf, which is like patrolled by like military age males, like whatever that means, with weapons that are just like, hey, what are you doing here, white person?
Oh my fucking God! You're fucking joking.
In St. Petersburg, that's the thing. Which is like, I'm not saying that like, if there's any culture that wouldn't allow this, it would be the Russians. But I have a feeling.
I was going to say, not that you know anything about Russia or anything, but something tells me that this is a bit much.
Yeah, we have our own like no-go zone. It's called like the Autonomous Republic of Chechnya.
All right, so continuing.
My God. So there's another torture scene where you finally capture the guy from the no-go zone. And he's like, you can't break me, American, whatever. And then they're like, Nikolai, go get the truth serum. And you pull out his wife and kid from a van, take him into the room, and they're like, oh, what are you going to do to them? What are you going to do to me? Like, they must know. They must see like what I will become. And they're like, oh, it's not what we're going to do to you. And then like they tell you to point the gun at his kid.
What?
Yeah, and you can click the trigger. That's the thing. Like, but there's no round loaded. And he was like, what? How dare you? Whatever. And he's like, oh, Sergeant Garrick, oh, he's got an itchy finger. This time it's loaded. And so he hands you a round, and immediately he squeals, blah, blah, blah. You can choose to kill the guy you're torturing or not in front of his wife and kid. So just an insane war crime. Just continue of the theme of like, the world stays clean because we stay dirty.
The Australian SAS.
I have a very poor British accent. I'm sorry to Nate's listeners that have bled over from Trash
These
Future.
bloody mooge on the bloody Barbie. That's actually maybe a little bit too British. Now, I used to be better at Australian accents, and I've lived here too long. So now, and I've worked on the only English accent I can do would definitely be inappropriate for a video game about cool tough guys because it's this London comedian that I hate. But wow, that's wild. You can basically, it's not just a war crime sequence with torturing people, it's also effectively threatening to murder women and children.
Yeah. So from
Wow.
there, go backtracking a little bit. The brother of the Urzikstan Resistance female commander, was the guy that stole the chemical weapons from the beginning of the game and uses them on the Russians. And so this gets the Urzikstan militia blacklisted as terrorists. Hey, we can't work with these guys anymore. They're bad dudes. So this kind of reminded me of the PKK versus YPG type of deal, where it's because of the actions of this faction that used to be allied with these guys, where now all of them are bad. We can't work with them anymore. They're tainted. So the CIA operative is fuck you, Commander. Commander pussy, you don't get it. I'm the man on the ground. These guys are heroes. And he leaves. He goes rogue and allies with the militia. So it's if 1 in a million spooks had this level of courage, it would be incredible. But the CIA would just drone bomb them as soon as they left to just not let it get out. Blah blah blah. So you square the plot by raiding the Russian chemical weapons compound and end it all at the end, and set it up for the Modern Warfare series. So this is a whole new brand of the critique I have for this is a whole new brand of once again, rough men stand ready to do violence so people can sleep peaceably in their beds at night type quote. Dude with bit rotten Facebook banner of that image where it's just that text, but it's really shitty and artifacted to shit. Once again, God bless our special operations troops. And this was just a horrible homunculus of Russia and these terrorists coming together as this boogeyman for the U.S. to fight. Someone for us to project all of our war crimes onto, and
wouldn't it be bad if someone did this in real life? Please do not dig any deeper than this.
Yeah, whatever you do not Google Highway of Death, Gulf War, fratricide, whatever. And the mental image I have of this is people doing the writers are doing a magazine clipping collage where you cut out different letters from different magazines to form a sentence of a ransom note that we saw in media, but instead it's writing the story, and it's all just clippings of horrible war crimes the U.S. and NATO is guilty of, as well as right-wing clickbait chain email forward, read this now, Muslim no-go zone in Whitechapel to create bad guys.
I mean, it's crazy to me because you talk about the first, the initial parts of this game, the initial installments being more or less, I'm not going to say anodyne, but relatively benign sort of World War II first-person shooters, to go to the point where it's gotten, I mean, it's just, you can kind of trace the midpoint of the American right-wing psyche, the mean, if you will,
yes,
from watching how these plots have progressed and gotten more and more ornate, but also more and more like that Mike Flynn PowerPoint about, how the Muslim Brotherhood controls everything, to include I don't know, just pick a random any political thing you don't like in the world is actually an ISIS plot masterminded by the Muslim Brotherhood. It's just, in order for it to be plausible, your understanding of the situation has to be super surface level, and you also have to be completely insane.
This is literally one guy who is slightly less stupid than the rest of the people he's talking to and preaching to, cobbling together this insane fever dream of shit that is coming together to destroy the United States and how we need to strike first.
So that brings us then to the trailer of the new game, which we all saw on the internet, in which the Russians are doing secret squirrel shit with nuclear weapons in Nicaragua, and you have to go and do bad stuff, but you also have to meet with Ronald Reagan, who will heroically tell you to go, do whatever America needs to keep its beautiful boys safe.
Yes. So for this came out in kind of two parts. The first part was what really made me contact Nate, and was it was the bat signal. I put it up because I couldn't deal with the shit I just saw. So this is Call of Duty Cold War. It's slated to come out next year, 2021. So far, we have two I guess media sources regarding the game. So it's the teaser trailer and the gameplay trailer. So the teaser trailer was what really alarmed me, and The story is it's set during the late Cold War again. A Soviet spy named Perseus, who had access to the Manhattan Project, who waited 40 years or whatever, is going to potentially go rogue and bring about the end of the world again. So it shows like a real life video of a Russian KGB defector warning us about this guy. Like Perseus is vaguely based on a real character, and it talks about how the USSR does like its plan to defeat America is by doing active measures. Like, oh my God, like, and this sets off like a 5-alarm fire in my brain talking about 2017, 18, Russia libs who are like Trump is gay for Putin, like making an allegory of our current state of civil unrest and distrust in the government. There was likely to be very little actual tangible Soviet Union or Russian in our modern day parlance influence. And it's instead them watching our society fucking crumble on its own. Like they're like, he will do demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. It's like this is just like what America is. Like the Soviet Union has to at best just blow over, just give a gentle puff to this fucking house of cards we have.
This reminds me of, one of my old army bosses, after bin Laden died, he had emailed me and he said he just thought it was really funny that they got bin Laden. He was sitting around with, watching porn and watching his own greatest hits on tape. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, that's what most people do when they retire after they win. Needless to say, he didn't like that comment, but I was like, he won. He fucking won. He got what he wanted. I mean, it sucks for him. It sucks that he died, but everything he set out to achieve, he achieved.
Yeah.
We you don't need to ascribe to the stuff some nefarious Soviet plot. You're like, the plot to destroy America. Well, first, we're going to have a right-wing takeover from the right. The Republican Party is going to start deregulating and financializing everything and destroying all metrics of quality of life. This is going to go on for 40 years. It's that doesn't sound as sexy, but it's sort of I don't think my hip shot here is that I don't think the Soviet Union really needed to do so much, considering we did it all to ourselves. But
100%, yeah, they just watched. If they were in a slightly better position in terms of military expenditure and stretching their territory too thin, and all the other problems that plague the Soviet Union, maybe they could have invested a little more money, I guess, to stoke the fire or whatever. But the problem is the embers are already there. We're stoking our own fire. We're destroying our own society, from politicians from top down and bottom up. We're doing it to ourselves. The Soviet Union or Russia had very little, if nothing, to do with actually fucking up the 2016 election or the entire United States from 1950 to 1990.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea that everything that's going on that's a problem in America is Russian disinformatia. And it's I mean, if your argument is that Putin's spies made America racist, I feel like you might want to do a little bit more digging.
Yeah, Russian troll farms and shit.
Yeah, and so reading this and getting up to this point, I mean, I'm interested because to me, I don't necessarily know if this was your take, but a lot of this, to me, what you've summarized strikes me as wanting to plant a seed of doubt in the sense to say, we did bad things because if we didn't do bad things, worse things were going to happen. So it retroactively justifies the bad things we did. Yes. And it also creates this impression that, whenever something goes wrong, whenever there's, a societal decline or destabilization, that none of that can be organic. None of the protests, none of the unrest can be organic. It all must be some shadowy conspiracy that's being directed by a super genius on a floating island somewhere, when actually it ignores all the things that have caused unrest, without directed influence, if you will.
Yes, this is flattening the world into this manageable conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, that fucking sucks. Well, we're kind of getting to the end of time here. And so in a way, I guess I was going to say, when you look at this as the Zoomer and former junior enlisted correspondent, do you feel like this series has had cultural echoes in like the way that people develop their worldview? Do you feel like it's fair to say that there are people whose worldviews have been shaped by an understanding of politics that's cribbed directly from the Call of Duty games?
I would say yes. And it's not going to be your like smart guys that go on to like read like insane 4chan manifestos or something. It's none of those people because they like think this is all like hogswallop. This is all crap, and it is. It's just like pure brain poison that like I willingly ingest on a regular basis. But this informs like stupid people. I'm not saying like the average American voter is like extremely stupid, but like the people that play Call of Duty and then go on to vote, like using the information that they may have gleaned there, are stupid. Like my fellow junior enlisted, I have no problem calling them stupid. And a lot of guys, like I've never like explicitly been like looking for a gotcha, being like, but as you see, you actually learned that from Call of Duty or like Harold and Kumar. But it just kind of like provides like continuing static and background noise for like a really ahistorical reading of like what we are as a society, where we like who our enemies are, why like our enemies are the way they are, why like we have done the things we've done instead of like retroactively justifying war crimes and like being heroic. It's like maybe we did these things because we've had a military and clandestine culture of being beyond reproach for so long. Maybe it like truly it does wind up being maybe we're the baddies, but they never make that jump. Like for them, it's just like, yeah, it was cool when you put on the quad nods and shot like a woman holding her like child over her dead husband in the face,
or getting in the in-game quest completion by holding a gun at a woman and a child.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is wild, man. Of all the stuff you've described, all the ahistorical nonsense, all the flattening, all the right-wing revisionism, the fact that they made it an in-game menu function that you were like, you can point a gun at this child. Like, yikes. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that, man. I don't know what to say to that at all. Yeah, like I joked in the earlier part of the episode about like, like mission 3 is do Beslan, but that's not that far from it. It's really not.
No, and like, yeah, I guess like the Call of Duty developers made a conscious choice to include like this controversial segment or mission because like it instead like they're in that same like house raid sequence where you're under night vision and stuff and shooting like terrorists and their like family. If you shoot a child like an innocent baby, it's game over. But in this instance, it wasn't a game over for pulling a gun that you didn't know was unloaded on a child, which they left that in there to just kind of like continue showing like, oh yeah, maybe we have to do bad stuff sometimes. It's like, no, the fuck we don't.
I mean, I remember this from the some of the initial stuff that was released about torture memos. Is that I know I'm not misremembering this, but if I did, I'll cut it for some reason. If I'm wrong, I don't think I'm wrong. But I recall reading that when the U.S. captured Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, they waterboarded him hundreds of times. But they also, and I am not making this up, I don't know if it was the U.S. or if it was auxiliaries, they tortured his children, who were very young. They were like 8 and 6. They were two boys.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
They put them in a box and covered them in like crawling insects. And were like, where is your father? And like, what the fuck would a 6-year-old know?
Oh,
like,
Jesus.
How the fuck do you expect a 6-year-old's going to be like, I know, we're like, he works at the business store. Like, I don't know the fuck. It's a 6-year-old. But they absolutely did that. And so in a way, it's like, I kind of wonder if we are not that far from the truth. It's just that having it be made into entertainment is what makes it so unbelievably shocking.
Yep. That's what it is, really. It's like it becomes like this is what you play to enjoy yourself and have fun and maybe read a cool story instead of like pointing at making the conclusion of like, hey, this is all fucked up. This is terrible. Like nobody's radicalized by Call of Duty except for me. But I mean, I already was radicalized, quote unquote, like towards a left leaning viewpoint of history and political leaning instead of like seeing this in COD and being like, damn, I'm voting for Bernie Sanders now.
Yeah, man. Oh, God. Well, on that note, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to do this deep dive, this absolutely exhaustive, thorough review of the entire brain death plot arc of the Call of Duty series, so that those of us who do not game in extremis can understand this cultural force. You've done a lot of work here, and I greatly appreciate it.
So that others may live. Semper Fortis.
Yeah. So let me ask, folks can follow you on at Kevin_Frint, but is there anywhere else they can find your work?
No, I don't have any recent projects that have come out because, I've been in the military up until recent. Don't have a whole lot in terms of anything left over. But yeah, I guess if you want to follow my Twitter for really poor, forced jokes, usually in bad taste, yeah, like Nate said, you can follow me at Kevin_Frint on Twitter. Nate, thank you so much for having me on to just dump my, brainworms onto you and your audience.
You're very welcome, and thank you again. And for everyone listening, we will talk to you next week.